Hello, everybody. Welcome to ESF Friday Transition Seminar, Research Seminar. My name is Zhang, and I'm a professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. And this seminar is sponsored by the CE Department, Qatar, and also the National UTC and the Tier 1 UTCs that are located at ESF. So today, I'm very glad to have three transition professionals from a local company join us, and they all come from the Cato and Associates. So I will introduce our speakers one by one. And first, I would like to introduce Jennifer. Jennifer Masuman holds a bachelor degree in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Virginia. He has participated in a variety of transition planning and engineering projects throughout Florida, Virginia, and also DC. Jennifer has a lot of passion for combining the data analytics with public input to solve the complex multimodal problems. And he contributes a lot of the studies, including, the identify the corridor needs opportunities. And most recently, actually, Jennifer worked with the FDOT to implement their complete streets policy locally and at the statewide. So Jennifer also involved in professional organizations. Actually, he worked as a treasurer for WTS Tampa Bay, which I'm leading right now. And unfortunately, we lost her because the increase of her workload in Kittleson. But I'm glad that you can still involve in our events. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. And then next, I want to introduce Franco Saraceno. And Franco Saraceno has a long experience in transportation field. And actually, he has more than 20 years of career as a city and a regional planner. And Franco has focused on the creative technical and collaborative strategies in corridor and the system planning studies. His fundamental belief is that planning as both art and science requires a certain creativity to fully understand and identify appropriate practical solutions. His area of specific activities include metropolitan planning organization short-term and long-range system planning, and FDOT regional freight and multimodal corridor studies, and also innovative public and stakeholder engagement techniques. Franco also leads an active lifestyle as a runner, cyclist, and a dad, all which contribute to a strong personal experience of multimodalism that both informs and inspires his professional work as a planner. So it's my first time to meet with Franco, but I really look forward to your talk. And then last but not least, I want to introduce Jake Marabella. And, I used to be the major advisor for Jake's thesis study, so I'm so glad to see you here. And now Jake is a senior engineer and experienced project manager in transition engineering, planning, and traffic operations. As I mentioned, he obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees both from the CE department of our university, University of South Florida. And he's also a licensed professional engineer in Florida. And Jake is very passionate about what he's doing, and he enjoys a lot about challenges coming from each unique transition study, and also the opportunity to contribute to planning, building, and maintaining an efficient and safe transition systems that is equitable for all users. Besides work, Jake enjoys board games and exploring Florida with his wife. By the way, his beautiful wife, who also was my PhD student. I was a major advisor of his wife, Qing Wang, and they also have two lovely young kids. So again, I'm so glad to have all of you here and very much look forward to your presentation. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. That was a great great introduction. I appreciate it. Let me share my screen real quick. I'm really just going to tee it off for Jen and Franco's presentations. there have a couple of really cool projects to share. One being the Tampa Mobility Study, and another Miami-Dade County Building a Better Bus Network. So,
Jake mentioned you are kind of on the format, not like slideshow.
Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. Hang in there just a sec. We'll put it on the other screen.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, it's still doing it. Hang on. Let me share a different screen here. Don't know why it's doing that. Just a sec. Share. Oh my goodness. What is this doing here? Work our way around this. Hang on.
If it does not work, it's okay too. I mean, everybody's in front of their own computer. I think it's we're not too small to see, but
there we go.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. All right. Catastrophe averted. All right. So yeah, like I said, thanks, Dr. Zhang, for a great introduction. We're happy to be here. This seminar is close to my heart. As a student, I thought it was a great resource and a great way to get exposure to the industry and get to see a lot of the major sides of it, being research and university, which are very important, obviously, as well as presentations from public agencies. I know we had City of Tampa and FDOT had some great presentations earlier this semester. And Franco, Jen, and I are really excited to kind of bring the consultant flavor to today's presentation. So you already introduced us, so not too much work for me to do there. So there's our mugshots, and I'll tell you a little bit about Kittleson though. So we are relatively small. So we're a national firm. We specialize in transportation planning, engineering, and research consulting. We have about 26 offices throughout the U.S. And you can see a nice little clustering down there in Florida. So we're able to cover much of the state, and there's a lot of great opportunities to collaborate between offices, and also draw on national resources to bring best practices and innovative solutions to transportation planning engineering needs, and safety operations and all sorts of cool things. Kittleson was started about 30 years ago. It's founded by Wayne Kittelson on the West Coast, and I want to throw one more slide up here before turning it over to Jen to talk about Tampa Mobility Plan. Kittleson, we're all students at one time or another, so we're excited to be able to participate in university and helping to answer questions and give students that are planning on pursuing green engineering or about to graduate, kind of give them some good information on what to expect when they get to the industry. So if students want to visit Kittleson.com and navigate over to the opportunities and conversations with Kittleson page, we hosted over the semester a number of virtual Q&A sessions that were paneled by our staff, ranging from folks that just started with a year or two experience to kind of describe a day in the life. Through our experienced staff, and as well as even the CEO was on one of the panels to kind of answer some questions such as, what do transportation planning and engineering projects look like on a day-to-day basis? What is it like to be an entry-level transportation professional? And some things of that nature. So again, really excited to be here. Excited that our Tampa office, so Jen, Franco, and I make up just about 50% of our small but growing Tampa office. And we're excited to bring a few cool projects that we've worked on both East and West Coast of Florida to the seminar today. And with that, turn it over to Jen.
Jen, you're muted.
Thanks, Franco. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Jake, for the introduction. Excited to share today a little bit about some of the work that we've done with the City of Tampa on their Citywide Mobility Plan. You may have heard a little bit about this from Jean Duncan when she presented to you all a few weeks ago, but excited to share a little bit about what we've been doing. So you may know that a lot of what's coming out of the city of Tampa right now is driven by the mayor's Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow plan. So she put out a strategic transportation plan, wanting to look at transit investment, trails and greenways, focusing on Vision Zero, which she has since adopted as a citywide policy, and taking a fresh look at urban parking and mobility, and really doing all of this through the lens of really great neighborhood engagement. So out of that has come Tampa Moves. So it's their citywide mobility plan. It'll look at all different types of transportation projects, from freight and vehicle projects to walk and bike projects, and how all of those things integrate with transit. Really wanting to set a clear vision for the future of transportation in the city, in a kind of a playbook, a framework for them to identify projects for the next 30 years. So this is definitely a long-term kind of plan. And setting standards and priorities for all modes. So how do we want our streets to serve all different types of users in ways that are safe and comfortable for everybody? To guide this effort, we initially set up these 5 guiding principles. So these are the MOVES in moves. We have mobility for all. Everyone should have access to good transportation choices. Promoting economic opportunity for the O. Creating a strong vision, so wanting to have a healthy, sustainable, and resilient Tampa in the future. Putting equity really at the forefront, removing barriers to transportation for people that need it most. And then, although it's the last letter, definitely the most important letter, putting safety as the first priority and really adopting that Vision Zero mentality of trying to eliminate all deaths and injuries on city streets. So some of the data that kind of got the city here and to think about transportation in a different way. First, kind of touching on some of those equity themes, transportation accounts for almost 20% of household spending in the city, which is double the national average. So where you live in the city of Tampa can have a huge impact on what jobs you have access to, what opportunities you have access to based on transportation options you have. We also have a racial disparity in the city. So in our majority non-white communities, over 40% of the individuals live below the poverty line. So, definitely wanting to tackle some of these economic racial disparities that exist across the city. And then looking at safety. So it's probably no surprise to you all, but on average, 44 people are dying on city streets every year, and another almost 300 people are severely injured. So these are folks whose lives are forever impacted by the effects of these crashes, and the city is committed to getting both of these numbers down to 0. And then kind of the last piece framing a lot of this is funding. So we had our surtax a couple of years ago, excited to get some new funding in the city. And then, of course, that has not materialized. So now we're once again in a situation where funding is decreasing. Cars are getting more fuel efficient. We're getting more electric vehicles. Those gas tax dollars are just not going as far as they used to. So how can we deliver a transportation program that gets the city the most bang for their buck, stretches their dollars as far as possible? So I'm going to dive into a couple specific aspects of the plan. The first I'll talk through is Vision Zero. So again, that's the S in moves. And while Tampa Moves, the overall mobility plan is really focused on, the longer term strategies, planning for the future, figuring out how to allocate all their funding to transportation. Vision Zero is focused on the here and now. What policies can we be changing? What actions can we be doing now to start to correct some of these safety outcomes that we're seeing on our streets? Again, probably very familiar to this group, but just to put us all on the same page. So as the city defines it, Vision Zero is setting the goal to eliminate all roadway fatalities and serious injuries while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. So it's a notion that no loss of life on our streets is acceptable, and we need to design our roads to be more forgiving, as people will make mistakes, but we don't want those mistakes to cost people their lives. Just a little wisdom from Albert Einstein to inject in here. So we've been trying to tackle safety for a long time, and now is kind of a time to think about it a little bit differently to try to get some different results. So with that comes the Vision Zero approach. So changing mentality that, crashes are inevitable, to that, loss of life is unacceptable and preventable. It shifts focus away a little bit from all crashes and really focuses on preventing those severe and fatal injury crashes. It takes away responsibility from the individuals and the individual motorists and put it on all of us to promote a safe system that prioritizes our vulnerable users, so people walking and biking. It acknowledges that people are going to make mistakes, tries to design the road in a way that makes those mistakes more forgiving, really focuses on collaboration between and within agencies and with the public. Less complaint driven, and we'll get into this with the plan as well, but using data and an outcome driven approach to prioritize investments and doing that to try to be more proactive to address problems before they arise. So Tampa right now is working on finalizing their high injury network. So this is a draft of that. So these are their high crash corridors throughout the city. And then shaded behind that are communities of concern. So if you're not familiar with this, this is something the Hillsborough TPO has identified, places where people have unique needs in meeting and getting to transportation. So low income, zero car households, limited English proficiency, folks that have traditionally had challenges participating in the transportation public engagement process and accessing transportation. And what we're seeing is that 52% of these fatal and severe injury crashes are happening in those communities of concern, which is well overrepresented what they make up within the city. We're also seeing a disproportion in pedestrian and bicycle crashes. So pedestrians make up 3% of roadway users on city streets, but almost 40% of the fatal crashes within the city. So this is a huge disparity and one that the Vision Zero plan hopes to start to tackle. And so again, this is really a data-driven plan, trying to identify problems early so that we can identify solutions to them. And these solutions will come in a variety of things from different policies and programs, of course, design and engineering solutions, and also partnerships with other agencies, educational campaigns, trying to tackle this from a lot of different dimensions, and then tracking progress over time. So seeing how we're doing, what's working, what's not, and adapting as we go. So kind of the second part, what we wanted to share today for the Tampa plan is kind of zooming back out to that mobility plan as a whole and how we're really integrating the public input into it. So this is kind of a schematic of our general planning process. So we start with input and a lot of data, start to identify some common issues and themes, and that's how we got to the guiding principles of Tampa Moves, and then identify action items. So what do we need to accomplish to achieve these goals, and then prioritize projects and strategies to move forward in that both the short, the mid, and the long-term range. So to start this plan, we did a series of 10 public meetings throughout the city. They were focused in different neighborhoods, and then one meeting was facilitated in Spanish, asking folks what their vision for transportation in the future was. These all happened last year, and so they were all virtual. So we used tools like the scrolling screen on the right, Poll Everywhere, to get people's input and still try to make it interactive. And then we also did a survey, online survey, and you can see some of the results on the left there. I think these two questions highlight a really interesting discrepancy in some of the input, and reminds me of a quote from Henry Ford back in the early 1900s. When I asked people what they wanted, they told me they wanted faster horses. So when you asked folks who drive to work every day, for the most part, what their top mobility challenges are, they're going to tell you it's their commute to work, the congestion they see every day on the streets. But when you ask them how they want to get around in the future, 80% of the folks that we surveyed want to have other options, want to be able to walk and bike and take the bus instead of having to use their car every day. So a good lesson in understanding what questions to ask and knowing who your audience is as you're putting together different surveys. From this input, we took our guiding principles and turned them into goals and ultimately measures. So this is the framework by which we will identify projects for the city and prioritize them going forward, so they'll know which projects are going to help them meet their needs the most, help them meet that vision that the community has set for the future. So one quick example of this, we've done this already with their sidewalk gaps. So they have a really great inventory of their sidewalk network where they do and do not have sidewalks today. So we identified different evaluation criteria that we could take a look at to evaluate which sidewalk gaps were most important to fill across the city. So you can see on the map in red are the ones that came out as most important, and the blue, while still important, are maybe ones that are lower on the priority list for them. And one thing that was really interesting in this is kind of reinforcing the need to consider both public input and data in these planning processes. So this is a snapshot from Sulphur Springs of where they currently have requests for sidewalks, so where people have complained in the past. And this is what the data shows the needs are. And so you can see this area here north of Hillsborough River, they have very few requests, very few complaints. But as the data shows, it's a huge need. This is a low-income area. It's connecting people to schools. These are some of the higher injury roadways in the city. So, just making sure that we're both taking input from the public and feeding that into the process, and also letting the data kind of truth check that and help us miss any potential blind spots of folks that we're not hearing from. Before I pass it off to Franco, just share this fun little cartoon, kind of the point behind all of this. There's too much traffic for Billy to walk to school, so we drive him. So with this plan, we hope to be able to provide choices to folks throughout the city so that they can take Billy to school how they want to, and not the only way that they feel like is safe today. So with that, Franco, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, thank you, Jen. I suppose we'll save any Q&A for the end for both presentations. Is that how we want to do this?
If that's what you like, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me try to share my screen.
Looks good.
All right. So again, I won't introduce myself. I think thank you, Dr. Zhang, for doing a good job of that. What I'm going to share with you all today is a project that we were involved in South Florida, in Miami-Dade County, called Building a Better Bus Network. And the name Better Bus Network is both a message as well as the actual name that was part of the branding for the effort. So a little bit of project background. This is about Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works wanting to do a major overhaul of the bus network in the county. This is something that hasn't been done in more than 30 years. So it's long overdue. There's a whole lot of inefficiencies and issues sort of baked into the network over time. But the specific goals of the effort are listed here. The first, to increase frequent bus routes, to focus on high frequency, in other words, more buses per hour serving any given stop on a route. Second, to create better connections across Miami-Dade County, better connect people with places in the county using transit service. And finally, increase access to frequent service in lieu of maximizing transit coverage. Now, that wasn't an expressed goal moving in, heading into the process, but was something that came out of an extensive public engagement process, that trade-off between frequent service and coverage of service. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a few moments. So this has been a collaborative, community-driven sort of grassroots effort that was actually initiated by a nonprofit organization called the Miami Transit Alliance, who back in June of 2018 sort of launched a campaign to do community engagement and visioning and to start to formulate what this concept, what this plan might look like to improve the bus network. So through that process, they did surveys, they did workshops, they did a lot of different things, had over 5,000 survey responses, more than 1,700 text and phone line sort of conversations, and about 140 workshops that engaged more than 3,000 people. So a very extensive public engagement process over the last couple of years. So I'm going to fast forward to September of 2019, when 2 network concepts were presented to the Board of County Commissioners, and they selected one, and by October of 2020, approved a plan. And at that time, it was just a plan. It was a concept. There was some detail built into it, but it was still more of a plan than an operations framework. And so at that time, the Department of Transportation and Public Works reached out to us and asked us to help them take it across the finish line. So they wanted to go to public hearing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to advance slides. They wanted to go to public hearing in the spring of this year. But before they did that, they wanted to reach back out to the community and the stakeholders one last time and work out any kinks, any concerns, any issues, and make any adjustments to minimize resistance at public hearing and to make sure that the community support was there to get this thing adopted. And when I say adopted, I mean in the spring of this year, they wanted to adopt an implementation plan and to move forward towards implementation of the changes. All right, so a little bit about what those changes are. I think that these 2 maps do a pretty good job of illustrating and telling the story of the existing network to the left versus the Better Bus network on the right side of the slide here. So first of all, these are midday frequency symbolized routes. So all of the green lines represent frequencies of 60 minutes or less. So in other words, 1 bus every 60 minutes. The blue lines are 30 minutes or less, the orange lines 24 minutes or less, and the red lines 15-minute frequency or less. 2 key differences that I want to point out in these maps. The color coding is the same in both, but in the map to the left, you'll notice 2 things. One, there's a lot of squiggly lines, right? There's a lot of routes that sort of meander around neighborhoods and provide circulation service that really sort of is a coverage network. As opposed to the map to the right, which all of those squiggly lines, or not all of them, but most of them are removed, and we've sort of focused service on the primary corridors. The other obvious difference is that in the map to the right, which is the Better Bus network, there are very few green lines, more blue lines, and a whole lot more red lines. We go from about 3 or 4 routes with 15-minute service to almost a dozen routes with 15-minute service, primarily in the north and east parts of the county. These maps also show you the difference in bus stops. Now, these maps at this scale don't really illustrate the differences very well, and I'll get into it at a different scale in just a moment. But I wanted to have this slide to also make the point that in addition to consolidating service, improving frequency at the route level, one of the things that degrades transit service is stop density, right? So the more stops you have on a line, the slower the transit service because the bus has to stop frequently. In some cases in the existing network, stop spacing was 1/8 of a mile or less. In some cases, every block the bus stopped, which obviously really slows that bus down. So in the Better Bus network, we actually consolidated from 8,000 total stops, which is how many are in the left side, to 5,000. So we actually eliminated 3,000 bus stops in the network. So that was another one of the major changes. So this next graphic shows the frequency improvements in a different format. These are frequency tables by time of day. So the image to the left shows you a handful of the routes in the existing service, very few red lines, a lot more blue and green, versus the image to the right, which shows you the frequency tables for a handful of routes in the Better Bus network. You'll notice a lot more red. And one of the distinctive features also of the Better Bus network is that you'll notice blocks of red between the times of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So the effort was to not just provide high frequency service in the peak periods, but to provide all day high frequency service to accommodate shift workers and folks that use transit for other than the 9 to 5 work commute trip. So I want to share a couple of statistics about the improvement in terms of service to folks in the county. The existing network provides high frequency service to only 10% of county residents. And the way that's measured is people that live within a 5-minute walk of those red lines, red or purple lines. In the Better Bus network, we more than double that to 23% of county residents that have access to high frequency service. From an equity standpoint, for people of color, the existing network provided high frequency service only to 9% of people of color in the county, and we almost tripled that to 23% with the Better Bus network. And then finally, people in poverty, again, we almost tripled from 12% to 28% to people in poverty in Miami-Dade County. So some very significant equity improvements in the Better Bus network. All right, so this is where we got involved. We didn't get involved until that last few months at the end of 2020. And we were challenged by the county, by Department of Transportation and Public Works, to find a way to transparently and comprehensively communicate the proposed bus system changes to the public and stakeholders. And I stress the word comprehensively here because we were given the express and directive to make sure that every bit of the changes was accessible and communicated effectively to the public. They wanted to make sure that everything was transparent at a very granular level. And by the way, this was all needed to be done during a pandemic and in 3 short months. So the challenge was significant in figuring out how to do this. So we put together a program, a public engagement program that included 10 stakeholder and community workshops, open text and phone lines for 24/7 communication with our team, an online survey, a professional video that communicated the changes very graphically. We had people at bus stops doing bus stop outreach. And then ultimately we had an online interactive map site. And that's the tool that I want to share with you that we developed. So what we did is we used an ArcGIS, Esri ArcGIS product called Story Maps, which is a tool that has a lot of different parts and can be used for virtual engagement in a lot of different ways. But one of the widgets that I want to focus on that we used was this map slider widget, which enables the comparison of 2 alternatives or 2 scenarios in a side-by-side format, very accessible, very easy, makes it very easy to compare the 2 alternatives. And so we developed 2 different sets of sliders, one at the route level that you see to the left and one at the bus stop level that's on the right side of the slide. So I'm going to switch windows so I can give you a live demonstration of this. First of all, this is can you all still see my screen and see a website? Okay. So this is the actual website for the project. And I encourage anyone that wants more information about it to just Google Miami-Dade Better Bus and you'll find this. And so we had these, and so all of the videos, documents, and a variety of information is available here. So feel free to peruse it, including these bus stop sliders. So you'll see here we have 2 route level sliders. One for off-peak service, one for peak, and then the same for the bus stop sliders. So this is the actual slider. What you see here is the existing bus network. And what you can do is grab this gray bar and slide it to the left, and it magically changes to the Better Bus network. So you can very easily compare the 2 networks. And you can zoom. So I can type in an address. I've got this sort of preloaded. If I live here on 25th Street, I can see, well, it's hidden by a route label, but I can see what routes I have access to today. And then if I slide the bar to the left, I can see what routes I will have access to in the Better Bus network. So there is the capability to make these lines interactive. In other words, click on the lines and get more information. We didn't do that for the route level, but we did do it for the bus stop level. So this is just sort of a high level tool to compare at the route level. If we then switch to one of the bus stop sliders, again, same thing. On the left side of the screen, we have the existing bus stops, all 8,000 of them. If I slide the bar to the left, I see changes to the Better Bus stops. So again, if I want to zoom in to my neighborhood or my house or my location and see how it affects me, I simply punch in an address, and I can see that currently I have access to this bus. Let's say I walk 1 block to the east to access Route 21. So I click on this bus stop, and I can see that 2 routes serve this bus stop, the number 12 and the number 21, both operating at a 30-minute frequency, in this case at the midday. If I slide this bar to the left, I see that bus stop disappears. So this is an example of a bus stop that was removed and consolidated, in other words. So I would have to then walk a block north and access this bus stop, or walk a block south to access this bus stop. And when I click on that, I can see that it only the Route 12 serves it, but at an increased frequency of 15 minutes, and the Route 21 disappears. One of the other tools that kind of goes along with this is a map book for the existing routes and a map book for the Better Bus routes. So if I then want to go see what happened to the Route 21, and these are numerically ordered, I can see that the operations details for Route 21, and I can see in the note that this route will be discontinued, and areas served by this route will be served by the Better Bus route, number 12. And then I can go to the Better Bus route booklet and see that the 12 provides that service at a 15-minute frequency. Oops, this isn't the 12. At a 15-minute frequency, and also the Route 17 also serves a portion of this route. So all of that information is readily accessible to the public. So I think, you know, one of the things that we were very excited about is that we were able to display and provide access to this great detail of information, 5,000, 8,000, and 5,000 bus stops in the existing and Better Bus networks respectively, so that people could really consume the information, digest it, and understand how it affects them personally. And so I'm proud and happy to announce that the public hearing did not actually happen in the spring of 2021. Had to be delayed for a variety of reasons. But 2 months ago in September, the public hearing happened, the plan was adopted, or the implementation plan was adopted, and the county currently is in the process of implementing the Better Bus network. I think by early next year, it will be implemented, and the high frequency network will be in place in Miami-Dade County. So that's all I have for my presentation. I guess both Jen and I can take any questions and attempt to answer them the best we can.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing us, you know, the outcomes from the industry that actually could be implemented and could affect, you know, our mobility. Yeah, we do have questions from audience, and also I forgot to mention this seminar is a hybrid format. So we do have the students in the Carter 202 on our campus. And we also have, you know, a lot of audience online. So the question from Levy McCollum, and says, I'm Levy McCollum, Director of Planning at the Palm Train. Regarding the Better Bus network implementation, what are some of the implications of removing a significant number of stops and increasing walking distance for some users? Thinking about the prior presentation mentioned the Vision Zero and the dangers by design report, Florida roads aren't inherently designed with pedestrians and bicycle users in mind. Could this lead to more pedestrian auto conflicts for suburban transit users?
Yeah, that's a good point and a very good question. And it isn't answered specifically by the Better Bus project, but there are parallel efforts, multiple parallel efforts on the part of the county, on the part of the Department of Transportation, as well as the TPO in Miami-Dade County to do first and last mile transit planning, really to focus in on those multimodal needs. At least the high ridership routes and stops. One of the things that one of the challenges that they've encountered is that in Miami-Dade County there are a half dozen or more municipalities that provide their own transit services, and so one of the things that the county is trying to do is to develop a centralized sort of database of bus stops across the county. Including amenities like shelters, like multimodal facilities that facilitate access to those bus stops, so they can get a full comprehensive picture of those needs at the countywide level. So that is definitely a parallel effort that's ongoing.
And there's some comments from Ken regarding the roundabout or regarding the safety issues. And he says, speaking of the data, the city's data shows the new roundabout at 40th Street and East Riverview Drive reduced to crash 73%. And in the meeting chat, he also provided a link. So for anybody who's interested in, read more about that, you can go to that link. We have other questions from audience. Besides writing in the meeting chat, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself, state your name, and ask the question. And also, do we have questions from the classroom?
Hi, no, here we don't have any question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, there's a question, sorry. Sorry, if you're not talking, please mute yourself so that we do not have those noise. Thank you. From Nick H. says, did you work with any vendors outside companies to implement and analyze your public engagement tools like surveys, workshops, text, and phone lines, or was this all done in-house?
Well, Jen probably can chime in on this as well, but I'll start with the Miami-Dade piece. We did use a couple of different sub-consultants. The video was produced by a public engagement and communications firm, so we did not, we didn't do any of the video. The survey was actually implemented by the county, so they did that in-house. We developed the questionnaire and they actually implemented the survey. And then in terms of the text and phone lines, we actually had the Miami Transit Alliance on board as part of the effort. And so they did both the bus stop outreach and the text and phone lines. But in terms of the ArcGIS work, we did that in-house at Kittleson.
And for the Tampa project, we did the meeting coordination in-house. We did work with Vistra to help get the word out and help with noticing. And then we are using, I'll post it in the chat, a website provider called Bang the Table for our project website. And so they allow us to do surveys, kind of mapping tools, all in one platform. So we'll be using this throughout the life of the project to facilitate different types of public engagement tools.
Okay, Franco, so for your, you talked about the Better Bus Network. I was wondering, now we see more collaboration between the public transit and also the TNC companies, right? So to, help to transport the passengers to their final destination. How have that been incorporated into your tool, or if not, how that could be and how that could affect the outcomes of designing the transit network?
Yeah, I mean, I think So it wasn't a consideration in the work that we did. I have to say that our work, Kittleson's work on this project was strictly that last 6 months doing the public engagement for the final run.
I see.
I can say this though, that again, as I said before, the county, the TPO, various agencies are doing a lot of that first and last mile access planning that includes consideration of TNCs, shared mobility, all that stuff. But also part of the messaging of the Better Bus Network, which was borne out in the GIS analysis, was that people would not generally have to walk more than 10 extra minutes to access transit relative to the existing network. So in spite of the reduction in coverage, access was still very, very good in the Better Bus Network. But yeah, in terms of the details of the bus stop and multimodal planning and all of that, that was separate.
Thank you. Any other questions from audience? Okay, so there's a question from Sarah says, for Better Bus Network, Sarah Hendricks from Qatar, by the way, for Better Bus Network was a goal of Miami-Dade to reduce total costs or reduce costs for system efficiency?
So the Better Bus plan really is a net zero change in terms of expense and service. So the idea was not to have to add any more funding to the network, but also not to take away funding. It's a net zero proposition.
I see. But may I follow up? So when you say do not add more cost, but if you make any changes of the network, there will be cost related, right? If you spend the cost to modify the network, means you have to improve the efficiency of the network to compensate that, to make it.
Right. And so yep, absolutely. So the reduction, so remember the existing network is 100 routes. The Better Bus Network is only 75. So there are reductions in service. Again, the meandering lines that provided circulator service go away. So that's where the cost savings come in. But then those costs are absorbed, or those costs are offset in terms of improving the frequency. So more vehicles, more service on the primary corridors. But all in all, it was a net zero.
How about I remember you mentioned about 10 minutes. So what is the demand elasticity on the walking time to the stops? Like when you talk about 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes more of walking to the stops, how those time actually would discourage people from taking the buses? Are there any elasticity kind of study to understand that?
Yeah, I don't have sort of any technical results or studies to answer that question. What I do have is results from the surveys that were done back in 2018. And we got more or less the same results in the survey that we did this year, that indicated people were more willing to walk a little further to access transit than they were to wait for transit. Right, so a 30-minute frequency, you can sometimes be waiting 29 minutes, sometimes 15. At a 15-minute frequency, the most you'll ever wait is 14 minutes. So wait time was more important to people than walk time, access time.
Yeah,
in survey results.
Yeah, in the meeting chat also can put another comment, says without driving change, data-driven is just the data. My city staff identified and computerized the location of every sidewalk gap and missing sidewalk in the city of Tampa more than 20 years ago. I'm so glad now to see the idea has come back, and with new leadership and new funding, the data will truly drive change. Hooray for Jennifer and her colleagues.
Thanks, Ken.
Ken, if you say that by yourself, maybe that's more exciting. I'm just trying to convey the message.
I can, if you don't mind me saying, I've waited a long time for this, and it's really great. It's really great to see. new mayor, new consultants, a new understanding, new progressive engineering in the air, new things going on at the University of South Florida. It's just absolutely great to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I especially like, one sentence in the bio of Jennifer is that, combine the data and the inputs from the people, right? Because translation is all about how we can serve the needs of the people. So I'm so glad to see, how your work actually combine these two together.
Because neither one will ever get you the full story. You really need both to paint the full picture of what's going on.
Definitely, definitely. And also I want to ask the questions on behalf of the students, they probably will be very interested in how the job market look like, how the business of the local companies are, and if they're looking for the job, will there be any opportunities, and what the potential employees are looking for, how they can be more well prepared. A lot of questions.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe I'll chime in a bit. I think we really look for students coming out of college who are just really passionate about learning. We don't expect you to know it all, know all the software, know how to do every project type. You'll learn that on the job. You'll learn what you need to know. But folks who are really committed to transportation, passionate about it, and excited to learn and grow.
Anything to add, Franco and Jake?
I don't. I think that's a great description for what we look for in entry-level applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think attending these seminars and getting exposed to some of the work that's being done, and hearing from Gene Duncan and the Secretary of FDOT in these kind of helps to gain an understanding of how the industry is. And Dr. Zhang, feel free to share our contact info if students do want to reach out and ask you questions. There's a lot of great resources on our website as well, kittleson.com. I think in general, we're always looking for good people, and really, transportation is not just a 9-to-5 job where you clock in and punch the numbers in and that's it. The work that we do impacts our communities, and it's very exciting to be able to see the work we do actually put out in the field, and let our friends and family enjoy it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, our student organization, student chapters actually organize those mock interviews. So I think probably Kittleson has already participated. If not, this year, we're going to organize that again. So I hope that, the representatives from your company can participate, give the students some hints and tips on how to prepare the interview, how to prepare the answers of the possible questions. And yeah, so for whoever's interested in industry jobs, maybe they can improve their skills. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, let us know. Happy to participate and help.
Yeah, and also actually in spring semester, I'm going to teach an undergraduate course, which is Transportation Engineering 2. So I think some of your topics fits very well into the outline of the course. So I probably will reach out again to see if you can come over and give guest lecture to our students. And that will be a big classroom. Probably will be 70, 80 students. And Jake has done the TA for me a long time ago, several years ago. Yes. Yeah, I think I will contact you again later.
Awesome.
All right. So do we have any questions? Any more questions from our audience? I just go through meeting chat and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Yeah. And I think, after the pass of the Infrastructure and the Job Act, right? So I think there are a lot of opportunities both for the industry and for the students that are entering into the market, job market very soon. And as also, we look forward to more collaborations with the local companies as a faculty and research at our university. So with all this, if we do not have more questions, I want to thank again to Jennifer, Franco, and Jake for spare the time from your busy schedule and give us this talk, and also answer all these questions and give some advices to our students. Thank you so much.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank everybody for being here. And next week we will have no seminar because it's a holiday. So I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you the week after.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.